Hey besties, listen up. I have a secret to tell you. LinkedIn now has improved the job search experience for nurses. Search by your specialty, the shifts you want to work, and the salary that you want to make. With so many employers hiring on LinkedIn, finding the perfect job is even more simplified. So don't spend months searching. Go to linkedin.com/nurses and find out why in the past year, more than 1.5 million nurses have used LinkedIn to search for their next role. That's linkedin.com/nurses.
This is the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone.
Now, here's Roger Stone.
Welcome back. I'm Roger Stone, and this is the Roger Stone Show. Joining us now, Colonel Douglas Macgregor, a retired combat veteran, a man who, if I read his entire CV, we'd take up the entire half hour, but a man who I respect is one of the foremost geopolitical and military thinkers in the country, who has served his country with distinction, who has widely known in the military, having served in U.S., Europe, Israel, Russia, China, Korea. His leadership in the Battle of 1903 Easting, the U.S. Army's largest tank battle since World War II, is legendary. His books on the groundbreaking military transformation are classics. We're honored to have him because he's not just a military man in the mold of MacArthur and Eisenhower and Patton, but he's also is able to understand the political dimensions of what's happening around the globe and in these military conflicts. He is also the chairman of OurCountryOurChoice.com, and I'm honored to call him a friend. Colonel Douglas Macgregor, thank you and welcome to the Roger Stone Show.
Oh, it's great to be with you, Roger.
All right, so there's a lot to cover here, and I wanted to afford much time to do that. I think you and I agree that the president now has an enormous amount of capital. I can't even imagine the stress on a given day, election day, of knowing that in the next 24 or 48 hours, one of two things is going to happen. Either you will lose everything, you will be completely destroyed, your reputation ruined, everything you own taken from you, and you will die in some dank federal prison, the victim of lawfare and bogus charges against you by a vindictive and vicious, politically motivated judicial system, or you will have an opportunity to go down in history as one of the greatest presidents we've ever had, like Washington, Jefferson, Lincoln, Theodore Roosevelt, and yes, I always add him, Dwight Eisenhower. The stress of that moment and Trump's worthiness, his stamina, his courage, his persistence, his resilience is just something I admire so much. So tell us about this moment in your view.
Well, I certainly share your admiration for what Donald Trump has accomplished, and I think it is very important for all of us to understand, including President Trump, the tremendous political capital that he has today. He's in a position that very few presidents have ever been in. His election is at least as phenomenally important as Nixon's was in 1972, and you'll remember that very, very clearly. So now he's in a position to do many things, but every president cannot do everything. Every president has to select carefully from the menu what he can and can't do. Donald Trump can begin what I would call a golden age in the history of the United States if he focuses on what he wants to do at home here in the United States. And that means he's got to secure the border as he's promised. He's got to restore the rule of law. And that includes dealing with all the illegals and the drug trafficking that is killing hundreds of thousands of us every year, and the human trafficking, the disappearing children. Got to deal with those things. He's also got to rebuild a great deal of infrastructure, something that people have talked about, but it's never happened. He's in a position to do those things, but he's got a couple of real danger points that he has to take care to avoid. Number one, he's got to look at Ukraine. And I think if I were advising President Trump, I would say, as President Trump, look, I did not start this war. I did not want this war. And I do not want this war. I want this to come to an end. It's very important because he had nothing to do with the outbreak of this war. The people who are in Washington governing us right now, those people created this mess, just as they opened the borders and introduced tens of millions of people, including large numbers of criminals and drugs, into our country. Same people responsible for two disasters. The war is now effectively over. Ukraine is destroyed. And contrary to what anybody says in Washington, they could give a damn what happens to the people of Ukraine. But Donald Trump does care. He spoke publicly, and he said the killing must end. He needs to announce that he's going to suspend any more aid to Ukraine, period. No more military aid, and that he is evacuating all U.S. personnel, military, political, intelligence, makes no difference. Everyone who's a U.S. citizen in or out of uniform needs to get out. And once he does that, that will set the stage for everything to end, because the fighting cannot go on if the aid stops. What he must not do is listen to the fanciful notion expressed very recently by this man, Sebastian Gorka, who for some reason is running around declaring that he's the future deputy national security advisor, which is a frightening prospect given his background. But he's saying that, he's going to threaten President Putin with even more aid to Ukraine if evil Putin does not stop. Look, we have to come to terms with two realities. Just as you have Mexico today is an organized crime state, that is exactly what Ukraine is. It's an organized crime state. And we've shoveled hundreds of billions of dollars into that place. It's done no good. It's a bottomless pit for our resources. It's killed hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians. There is no future in it. The best thing we can do is to get out from under this organized crime state. Stop pretending that we're underwriting liberal democracy there. Nothing could be further from the truth. This is the most Stalinist-like regime that Ukraine has seen since Stalin died in 1953. This has got to go away. He needs to distance himself from that, and then he needs to tell the Europeans something that he's always wanted to tell them. We're getting out of it. We don't want it. We don't support it. It's up to you. You Europeans that border Russia, you need to make your peace with the outcome. You need to sit down at a conference with the Russians and with whatever government emerges to represent what remains of Ukraine and come to terms with your neighbors. We Americans are not going to be your 9/11 force. We're not going to be your first responders. That's a position that Donald Trump took while he was president and the previous administration. It's the right one to take. If we continue to intervene over there and meddle over there, we will never, ever, ever see a European defense emerge. We'll never see another German military establishment on the scale of what existed in the 1980s reemerge, which Europe desperately needs. We need to pull the rug out from under all the woke, globalist, neocon Europeans that have led Europe into this deadly confrontation with Russia. We want to do business with the Russians want to do business with us, and that's where we should focus. And in the Middle East, he needs to look carefully at what's really happening. This is not a matter of defending Israel anymore. Israel is engaged in a war of conquest. It's expanding its territory. It's killing tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands. We have no idea how many people have died in southern Lebanon. There are various reports. The British Lancet Medical Journal said that at least 200,000 people in Gaza have either been killed or wounded, and more are dying as a result of no aid reaching them. This is a humanitarian catastrophe. He needs to make it very clear to Mr. Netanyahu and to the Israelis that we are going to help them defend themselves, but we are not going to assist them any further in this offensive war. Now, that may not make many of his donors happy, but the fact of the matter is the entire world has turned against Israel and the United States. And right now in Europe, the situation is so dire economically that we may see Europeans defecting very soon from what remains of the European Union and joining BRICS. this new entity that is designed to be a parallel economic structure to compete with the United States and the so-called post-war order that is dead. It's gone. It's vanished. And President Trump is not a reactionary. He's someone who initiates, who creates. He does not run around and defend what's lost. He builds new things. That's what he's done in the private sector. That's what he needs to do with the United States. We need to secure that border, number one, and bring forces back from Europe to do it as soon as possible and get out of these pointless conflicts that we cannot ultimately end in any other way but by disengaging and telling the people who live in these regions, we are happy to host conferences and help you sort these things out, but we don't want to be a party to the destruction, because it's a very reasonable expectation at this point, Roger, that if we don't say those things, we could end up in a nuclear confrontation with Russia and potentially even China. That's something that I know President Trump absolutely opposes and does not want. So we need to pull that rug out from under the people that want to make war on that scale. That means end this relationship with Zelensky, end our relationship with that government, stop supporting it, and tell the Russians we will help bring peace. We will end the aid. We will stop our activities in Ukraine. We will pull back behind the borders of NATO and tell the Europeans that they need to go forward and sit down and meet with the Russians. And we need to tell the same thing to the Israelis. We love Israel. I certainly do. I've been there many times, and I have great admiration and affection for the Israelis. But what they are doing now is absolutely suicidal. If they do not stop soon, they will find the entire world, the entire region arrayed against them. And all the American military power that we have is not going to rescue them if that turns out to be the case. And that's where we're headed right now.
Folks, if you're just tuning in, we're talking to Colonel Douglas Macgregor, who is a noted military expert. He's also the head of OurCountryOurChoice.com. And when we come back, we're going to talk about these reports that the United States has authorized the use of NATO missiles to hit targets deep inside Russia. Now, I note that that's been reported widely in the media, but I still haven't seen any official announcement of that authorization by the current government. So when we get back, I'm going to ask Colonel Macgregor about that and a few other important matters. So whatever you do, folks, don't touch that dial. This is the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC, and we'll be right back.
Shopping is hard, right? But I found a better way. Stitch Fix online personal styling makes it easy. I just give my stylist my size, style, and budget preferences. I order boxes when I want and how I want. No subscription required. And he sends just for me pieces, plus outfit recommendations and styling tips. I keep what works and send back the rest. It's so easy. Make style easy. Get started today at StitchFix.com/Spotify. That's StitchFix.com/Spotify.
Oh my God, it's the coolest thing ever. Hey guys, have you heard of Goldbelly? Well, check this out. It's this amazing site where they ship the most iconic famous foods from restaurants across the country, anywhere nationwide. I've never found a more perfect gift than food. They ship Chicago deep dish pizza, New York bagels, Maine lobster rolls, and even Ina Garten's famous cakes. Seriously. So if you're looking for a gift for the food lover in your life, head to goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT.
Faraday presenta Ojos con Alergia y Picazón contra el jardinero. Y el ganador es Faraday Extra Fuerte. Para aliviar la picazón de los ojos por alergia, actúa más rápido y supera Claritin y Flonase aún a las 24 horas. Faraday, adelante.
This episode is brought to you by Hulu, presenting Paradise. Paradise is Hulu's critically acclaimed addictive drama series, starring Sterling K. Brown, Julianne Nicholson, and James Marsden. The Daily Beast calls Paradise your next TV obsession, and the New York Times says it's exhilarating in all the right ways. Paradise is for your Emmy consideration in all categories, including Outstanding Drama Series. For more information, visit fyc.hulu.com. It's the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
And we're back. If you are just tuning in, we're talking to Colonel Douglas Macgregor, one of the foremost military thinkers, strategists, and analysts in the country today, a man for whom I have unmatched respect. Colonel Macgregor, I have read that the Russians have now used a new type of ICBM that the NATO defense systems are unable to intercept. In this particular case, they have used them but not attached nuclear payloads to them. Essentially, it appears to me, as an amateur, that Putin is showing the West that he has the ability to destroy us if they continue to provoke the Russians. Your analysis.
Yes, he's doing exactly that. And I think it's important to keep in mind, despite what is being said here in this country about him and in Western Europe, most of which is nonsense, President Putin absolutely does not want a war between the United States and Russia. If you go back and look at his statements, as well as President Trump's statements about nuclear war, they are both unanimous in their abhorrence of the very idea. What he's demonstrating is that he does have a lead in technology over us. Now, we can discuss, well, how did this happen? I mean, we spend infinitely more money on defense than they do. And that's a problem because, quite frankly, we have not spent it very intelligently. That's a different subject. But it opens up something else for President Trump in the future. He has to think about the fact that we now have a 130% debt to GDP ratio. We need to drive that back down under 100%, preferably to 70 or 80%. And that means that we do have to look at cutting spending, and some of that has to come out of defense. And he knows that. I'm sure he does. This is not a time for a contest between how much better we are or how much better they are than we are. That's a lot of nonsense. He simply said, I don't need nuclear weapons to challenge your control of events in Ukraine. And, you know, he's right. By the way, he could not challenge our control of events in Mexico if we chose to use our military power in Mexico. There's nothing he could do. And the analogy holds true for Ukraine. Eastern Ukraine has never been an area of vital strategic interest to the United States, but it is of vital strategic interest to Russia. We should respect that and get out of it and leave it to the Europeans to sort this thing out. We can certainly back them up, and we can certainly support their efforts. But President Trump is absolutely right about Europe. They must learn to stand on their own, and now's as good a time as any.
Yeah, it just seems to me that the American media continues to push this false narrative that this war in Ukraine is about the territorial ambitions of Vladimir Putin and Russia, that he wants to gobble up Ukraine and then all of Poland, Germany, and perhaps he even wants France, when in fact, today, based on my study, we're in violation of two agreements that we made, the Budapest Memorandum and later the Minsk Accords, in which we promised, specifically James A. Baker III, acting as Secretary of State, not to push NATO, using his words, 1 inch eastward towards Russia, meaning not forcing Ukraine to join NATO, which really means not mounting NATO missiles, financed by us, of course, on the ground in Ukraine, pointed at Russia. To me, it seems analogous with the situation here in the United States in 1962, when the Russians mounted missiles in Cuba, a mere 90 miles from where I'm sitting right now, and President John F. Kennedy objected, and the country we thought was on the brink of a world war, one that was resolved peacefully. But the fact that we're in violation of our own agreements, this gets buried in this constant narrative pushed by neocons like Lindsey Graham and Nikki Haley, that this is somehow about Putin wanting to seize and gobble up all of Europe, all of which, of course, he's denied and none of which he has said. Am I historically correct here?
Oh, no, you're 100% on target. And unfortunately, this administration that we have now defeated in the recent elections has raised lying to a high art. They've lied about everything. You know, watching the extent to which they are working right now to create the conditions for an open war between the United States and Russia is only a fraction of what they have done. I can't think of any presidential administration in American history that has done more to harm its successor than the Biden administration has done to harm President Trump and his team. I don't know how President Trump sees it, but I'm sure he's aware that he's marching back into hostile territory. And if he does, he just needs to come in with a take no prisoners attitude. I think he will. I think he understands right now to get his team in place, he's going to have to make a lot of recess appointments. And I'm sure he's got a plan for that. But the most important thing for us to keep in mind is that we are not as healthy economically as we were in 1962. For that matter, as we were in 1992 or 2002. President Trump is inheriting a very, very difficult situation economically. And he's got to take this into consideration. And that is why he has to focus here at home. And those troops that we have sitting pointlessly in Poland, where the Russians they're not going to attack Poland. The Russians are not interested in Western Europe. I mean, Roger, can you imagine anyone in their right mind who wants to go into Western Europe and manage that catastrophe? It's just, it's insanity on steroids in Paris. Macron's hanging on by his fingernails. Schultz is dead man walking. And Starmer, I'm surprised the British people haven't risen up already and removed him. They're facing economic Armageddon as a result of these fools. This is a lost cause. Get out of it. Let it go. It'll sort itself out. We need to focus here at home. We need to get our house in order. We need to cut some spending. And I think President Trump understands that. But he's got to say it. He's got to get out there publicly and tell people, damn it, I didn't start these wars. I don't want these wars, and I'm not going to support them, period. And I think if he does that, he'll have every American in this country standing up, cheering him until their voices are hoarse, because I see no evidence that anybody in this country wants to go to war with anyone anywhere.
Yeah, I agree with your analysis. Look, you are a military strategist. I've spent my life as a political strategist. So one thing I think we agree, and that is communications are absolutely key. The way to mobilize the public, the way to educate the public, the way to have a safe and secure citizenry is for people to be able to access the truth. Yes. You are deeply involved with a great project called Republic.us. Tell us a little bit more about this, because as the mainstream media continues, they don't have the monopoly they once had, but let's be candid. They still have enormous ability to censor the communications of individual patriots who don't buy their narrative. They call it disinformation or misinformation, as if they are the ones who get to decide that. Tell us about Republic.
Well, you're right. Republic is the vision of an organization called One Truth Media. They decided they wanted to build a new social media platform where anyone who wants to join that platform can pay a fee, either an annual cost right up front or on a monthly basis. And that fee is normally about $180 for a year. But if you go to Our Country, Our Choice, to my website, you'll see a code there under my name that will give you a break on that price. So you only have to pay $120, which is $60 in savings. And we're starting to organize it so people can pay monthly, because we know, these are hard times and we're not interested in taking money from people. But if you want to take action, you want to go on there, you want to be able to address your views to people in your community, whether it's your sheriff, the county attorney, or it's the attorney general at the state level, or it's a senator or a congressman at the national level. It doesn't matter. You can go on there. You can find all of these people. You can gain access to them, to send them what you think. You can post videos, and you will not be censored, and you will not be canceled. And this is not designed for the exclusive use of people who agree with President Trump or disagree with President Trump. It's for everyone. And there is no advertising. So that we, as an organization at OCOC and also with Republic, are not hostage to big corporate money. We really don't want that to happen. We don't want someone with billions of dollars to come in and say, look, I love what you're doing. By the way, this is the message that I want you to send. This is a place where we're going to have people's news, a place where the American population can express their views without fear. And I'm telling you, you will not be canceled. You will not be thrown off. You will not be censored unless, of course, you're pornographic. That's out of the question. Or you advocate for the overthrow of our government, which we will not tolerate. But other than that, you can go on there and say what you want. So I think this is an information highway for Americans from Portland, Oregon to Portland, Maine. Everybody can get on there, and you can communicate across state lines, across your state, across your community. You can express yourself. You can organize. This is the essence of self-organization. And, you know, that was the foundation for the American Revolution. It seemed to work then. I think it can work now.
Well, I joined. It's a nominal in cost. What I found interesting is when I post my content from 77 WABC and a link to where people can see it, it gets terrific traffic. When I put it on other social media platforms, well, not so much. So I frankly think it's being suppressed. One thing about 77 WABC, we allow all viewpoints here. We let everybody who wants to speak, and we're not political here. I have my views. Other hosts here at 77 WABC disagree with me. They have their views, but no one is censored, and it's why we produce some of the greatest programming out there. When I post it on Republic, it gets terrific traction. Not so much in some of these other places. So I commend you for your activities there. I thank you again for joining us today to try to put the world's affairs in place. I do want to thank our guest then again, Colonel Douglas Macgregor, for joining us. And check out his website, ourcountryourchoice.com. Folks, don't go away, because coming right up is my good friend, Joe Piscopo. Now, this guy has a heck of a set of pipes, and he plays homage to the great Frank Sinatra in his upcoming program, Sundays with Sinatra. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Roger Stone Show right here at 77 WABC Radio. Folks, we are the most influential, the most entertaining, the most powerful, and the greatest AM radio station in the United States today. God bless you, and thank you for joining us.